the guy that we're going to introduce you to, and Marc has actually been a guest here on the show, and he's a great guy. He's a great photographer. He's a great author, and he's got a brand new book. Now, I got a sneak peek of it. You know, he sent me the PDFs, and I got to look at it. Oh, but I put my cans on. But oh my gosh, so many people need this book, because this is kind of the missing link for a lot of people. Because there's a lot of people, and I think some of the authors that we're talking about, they know how to run their camera, but they're missing the art of photography. So let's bring on Marc. Hey, Marc, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Scott,
there
Eric.
You are. All right. Hey, how you doing?
I'm awesome. So great to be back with you guys.
Okay, can I say something? You're wearing the name of your book on your shirt.
Yeah, there it is.
You know,
why have I never thought to do that?
There it is. It's even on the cell phone.
Shameless self-promotion, right?
Yep.
Hey, but you know what? You wrote a great book. It needs everybody needs to know about this book. So I'm with you, dude. You did a great job on gathering such brilliant people to come together for this. So tell us about the book, Rook. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I've been working on this book for about 40 years. I literally, this is my fourth book, but literally this has sort of been my life's work to try to understand, well, what's the anatomy of creativity and how can you increase it? So, going back to what you guys were just discussing, this whole idea of who do you listen to, who do you look to? There's so many opinions about creativity. I went to 12 of the most remarkable creative people that I could find in various different fields and interviewed them to try to find out, well, what worked for them, but also what you guys were talking about. What are some of the common misconceptions that people have?
Yeah, what are those?
Yeah, what would be the common misconceptions?
The number one misconception is that you're kind of either born with a creative gene or you're not. And that some people are creative and some people aren't. And I contend, and having talked to all these different people, that's not true at all. Creativity is something you develop, just like you were talking about, Scott. You have to develop your eye for photography. Maybe you're not born with it, but you have to find a way to discover what makes a good photograph.
I totally
do that.
I agree, because there are certain people that are obviously born and they're talented. They're just talented musicians, they're talented singers, they're talented photographers. But there's a lot of people where it's kind of like a muscle. They need to, and they can get better.
Well, even those people born with the natural talent, they still have to hone that creativity. They still have to, practice it, like you're talking about, build the muscle.
What are other misconceptions?
There's a secret, if you don't mind, Eric, I could dive in on that. I actually talk about how you hone that muscle. Should I give that away now or later in the talk?
No, tell us now.
Tell us.
Now that you put it out there, you got to tell us.
All right, so real quickly, there are 5 stages to creativity. The first one is visualization. Now, Ansel Adams said the whole key to a photograph, what makes a photograph different than a snapshot is you first visualize it. You get the idea in your mind, whether it's in a split second, like Henri Cartier-Bresson did. He could visualize something in a split second and press the shutter at the right moment. Or maybe it took 9 hours for the clouds to line up like Ansel Adams did. It's still a visualization. But how do you strengthen your visualization? How do you know what to imagine? That's the secret sauce, right?
All right.
And here's the secret sauce. You go look, and this is what you're also talking about, look at great art. Look, whether it doesn't matter if it's music. I know a photographer, Joseph Holmes, who's a fantastic landscape photographer. And I said, what was your inspiration? He said, the Beatles. He went to the last Beatles concert at Candlestick Park in 1966, and he found it so energizing that it just shot him out into the world as a photographer.
Wow.
You never know where you're going to get that inspiration, but you have to find it from somebody who knows what they're doing, like you guys were discussing.
Yeah. Wow.
So if you want to feed your creative inner beast, the best advice I can give you is be looking at art. Joey L., where's his inspiration? But Rembrandt. And you know, every one of these fantastic photographers and authors and musicians told me the same thing, that you can feed the inner beast by looking at art and taking art in, because that builds a library in your mind that you then, when you see something, you go, wow, that's pretty cool. I could do something like that too. That's just one little tidbit.
Wow. So what are the tools? Do you need a set of tools for creativity? Like, what are the kind of building blocks of this?
There's 5 things. So the first one is visualization. There's 5. Got to make sure I got the right number of fingers in. Visualization, you got to get it in your mind's eye. You get an idea before. Then you have to know your tools. And in photography, you have to know your equipment. Like you're saying, is it the 50 millimeter the appropriate lens? Maybe not. Maybe the 85 is more appropriate. Well, that's knowing your tools, right? You're not going to shoot everything with a fisheye. You're not going to shoot everything with a 400 telephoto. You have to know your tools. And so that's super important. Then you have to, once you've visualized, you know your tools, you've got to work your craft. You got to get out there and do it. Now, listen,
yes.
As silly as that seems, there's a major disconnect that I bump into is, well, I don't know. I'm not so good at writing. Well, how often do you write? Well, I'm thinking about it. Listen, Stephen King sits down, he writes 2,000 words a day. 2,000 words a day, right? You're going to get good at it. And it's the same thing with photography. If you are shooting 10 images a week, how good are you going to get? If you shoot 1,000, you're going to probably start improving, right?
Man, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
You are on it. Yes.
Yeah. You can't sit and watch YouTube videos and wonder why your craft isn't improving, because you have to work your craft.
Yeah.
Then the next stage is editing. You have to edit. But here's a big trick on that one. Don't edit in the middle of working your craft. Again, this was gleaned from, that was actually from David Campbell. You may not recognize the name. He's the father of Beck. But listen to this. He has produced or been involved with 425 gold and platinum albums. 425 gold and platinum albums. Okay? This dude has some cred, right? He said, don't stop yourself. When you get into motion, don't shoot yourself in the foot and start going, oh, I'm no good. This really sucks. Keep the flow going, because it will build up momentum. Then when you go back later, you do your editing, but don't edit when you're in the process of working your craft.
Absolutely.
That's another big misconception.
You are so right. You know, that happens to me when I'm writing a book.
Yeah.
Like I have to get in a zone, and I plug along, but all of a sudden, when you start doing it every day, you get into a zone, and all of a sudden I am like, things are flying off my fingers. And and you do have to get into a rhythm and a zone. And they joke about it here at my office, is like, oh, he's in the zone. But if I'm in the zone, man, I can just go, and I'm loving it. I'm having fun. But if I were to stop and go back and start rereading and editing it would destroy the zone. It would kill it.
Absolutely.
Does, yeah.
It would kill it.
Well, it's like when you're out on a shoot. You don't edit your work when you're out on a shoot. You just capture, right?
Right.
Capture. Whether it's video or stills, you just want to get that stuff in there. And then when you go back to the studio, now you're going to do your editing. Totally separate process. When you cross those two over, you're headed for trouble. So uncross them. That's that stage of editing. And then the final stage is sharing your work out into the world. And by that, I mean in many different ways, not just on social media, but get your work out there. One of the most, to me, the most important things about being a photographer is hanging your own work, right?
Yep.
Get prints made with beautiful frames and hang that work. Don't just let it live in a computer somewhere. That's not going to satisfy your creative urges, right?
All the pictures in Eric's office and on my office, they're all our own stuff hanging on the walls.
I've seen them. They're beautiful.
And Eric's got rockets going off on his walls.
Mine looks like one big explosion.
This looks like one big explosion, his whole office. But no, you're right. All of this stuff is just so speaks to me. I love this. And your book is awesome. It's this in a book, and it's so great.
It's so dead spot on. And I think that's what happens is people, they kind of pick and choose those 5 things, and they kind of focus on one, or they don't put it all together. And the one up front, the visualization, I think, is where a lot of people are they're passing right over that one of being able to visualize.
That is the real secret. I've interviewed, I don't know, probably 100 photographers at least, and every one of them brings that point up, visualization. Chase Jarvis made the point of, look, when you go out on a shoot, don't even look through your camera at first, because that already constricts your vision. Go around and look at the scene and see where the light is and what triggers something. Then get your camera out. And too many of us go, boom, put a camera right in front of our face. We've already reduced our view down to this tiny little opening, right? It's this big when it should be this big. Because that's right. So, and that's true not just in photography, but that's true in any creative field. Get your visualization, get your vision there first. Another big tip is get a notebook and use it. I am the most notebook happy person you've ever seen because I'm always jotting down my ideas. You have those flashes of inspiration, and if you don't put them down somewhere, they just fly right out the window. Mm-hmm. You go, what was that idea?
Well, we both do that. I know
we both do that.
Yeah, well, the notes on our phone.
I use the Notes app on my iPhone.
That's what I use, and it's just constantly full of stuff.
I have hundreds of notes, not of individual notes. I have actual notes that have names, and then inside those, all kinds of ideas, because you never know when inspiration is going to strike.
Yeah, like I have that with rocket photos shoots that I'll have, or Milky Way, or landscape, and I've got different subfolders for everything. When you'll just get like an idea in your head and it'll pop in, you got to write it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I bump into a lot of people who say, "Oh, I'd really like to write a book." Okay, why don't you start with writing your own notebook, right? That's where my books begin. Scott, you probably do the same thing. My books begin with a notebook and jotting down ideas.
Well, that's funny. My live tours come from that. So my live tours come out of that. When it's time for me to do a book, I actually write an outline. I'm old school, man.
Outline, but it's kind of notes.
I write an outline. Here's what's going to be in chapter 1. Here's what's going to be in chapter 2. Because then it's the blueprint for the book. And I always tell new writers, like, write an outline. But my tours come from my notes. And then my books come from writing an outline. We're going to jump to break, Marc. Do not go away. We want you to stick around. But I want to tell people, we didn't really read the tagline for your book because it is called Create. But I think the tagline really describes what the book is about. It's called Create: Tools from Seriously Talented People to Unleash Your Creative Life. And there it is right there. He's holding the book cover right there. And
I didn't realize I was holding it up.
I'm sure it was an accident. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to be talking more with Marc just right after this. So don't go away. I love what you're saying. Say more of this when we come back. Hey, we still have Marc. Marc's with us, and Marc is author of the book, Create: Tools from Seriously Talented People to Unleash Your Creative Life. That's the cover of the book right there. Before we go any further, everybody watching, go order this book. Don't go order another book on camera settings. You want something that'll actually inspire and change and motivate you? Go get the book Create. I'm sure it's at Amazon, the world's biggest bookstore, and Barnes & Noble, and anywhere cool books are sold.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's in all those outlets. You can for sure just type in my name, Marc Silber, on Amazon. It'll come right up.
And it's Silber.
Yes, and it's M-A-R-C.
M-A-R-C, there it is, right there. So just go order it right now. Look at that. What a deal. $13. It'll be the best $13 that you've spent on your photography in a long time. Go order it. Get the Kindle version if you can't wait to get it shipped to you. It's $10.49. There's nothing in photography that you can't even get a replacement lens cap for $10. This is something that will actually make a difference.
Three
it's
of them
such
for
a good
lens
book.
hood.
So, hey, Marc, can you tell us, because I know that you delved into the book, can you tell us some simple ways that you can increase your creativity for everybody?
Absolutely. Well, I've given you two of them already. So go to museums a lot, look at art, use your notebook. How about this one? This one will probably surprise you. What if I told you that there's a way to increase your creativity by 60% that's totally accessible to anyone and costs nothing? And it's not something you take. It's not a pill or a drug or anything.
It's not a pill.
In fact, it's probably one of the most healthy things you can do. If I told you that, you might be surprised. But the answer is walking. There was a research project done at Stanford University in 2014 where they found, and they did test cases, that people who went out and did walks every day were 60% more creative than those who just sat in a chair. Now, how simple is that? And I have a whole chapter about walking because there's more to it than meets the eye. You know, when you walk, you've got to let your attention go out. Don't go on a walk with your iPhone in front of you and look down at the screen because that's defeating the whole purpose. But that simple little tool, and we do this as photographers, we go for a walk with our camera, which is awesome. And that's a very healthy thing to do. But just get out there every single day, especially in our digital age, because we become so prone to staring at one screen or another. Get out there and look at the world and take it in. Leonardo da Vinci recommended this. He also said when you walk, take your notebook with you and make sketches and notes of things that, again, spark your imagination. How about that for a simple creative?
That is awesome.
And that, a good segue there is if you want to get out walking with your camera.
Yes.
We have an event for you to sign up for, right?
The photo walk.
Right. Yeah, the Worldwide Photo Walk, the 12th annual Worldwide Photo Walk's coming up October 5th. You can walk around with other people who will watch your back while you walk. Yeah. You can take your camera, get outside. So if you haven't been walking, you can, that day you'll be 60% more creative. I love this idea. That is such great research. That I never heard that before, Marc. That is amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's in the book. Hey, another big misconception is I don't have the time. I don't have enough time. I wrote a whole chapter on how to dispel that because what most people do, unfortunately, they don't view time like they view money. You know, if you were going to save up for a trip, you obviously have to put it somewhere and economize a little bit. If you keep blowing everything, you're never going to have the money left over to go on that incredible trip that you want to take. Time is the same way. If you blow it, if you waste it, it's like junk food, you know? You can have junk time, which is just, most of us waste too much time on the computer in front of a TV. If you allocate and budget your time correctly and view it as an investment or as a resource that you have, then it will pay dividends. And so I have a whole chapter, including how to really take your time and put it on a piece of paper and find out that you probably have about 20 hours a week left over for your creative activities. That's just sitting there. It's like the quarters under your couch. It's just sitting there.
There you go.
I love that analogy. It's like the quarters under your couch.
There's time quarters everywhere. They're just hidden all over the place.
I think there's a remote. I think my Apple TV remote is somewhere under my couch.
Somewhere, right? Well. That little one that's always getting
the
lost.
Little black one. That's so awful. Yeah.
It's like our socks. They just go into some evaporation process into your dryer.
They do. So, hey, Marc, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the most fascinating things was finding these different people. So in your previous note, on break, you were talking about Marc, who is a motorcycle rider. Well, one of the people I interviewed is Keith Code, who anybody in the motorcycle world immediately will recognize that name. He's the number one. He has a school called the California Superbike School that teaches not only the biggest and most worldwide classes, but teaches people like Tom Cruise and, all these incredible celebrities how to ride bikes, Brad Pitt. And anyway, I interviewed him and he came up with this idea that you must always look at the amount of attention that you have. Every person has a given amount of attention. And this is really important for photographers. If you have to invest, he uses an analogy, you have $10 worth of attention, and you have to invest $9.50 of your attention on your camera. You've got 50 cents left over for your other creative skills, right?
Yeah.
But what if you get so good and so fluid with your camera where you're only having to invest 25 cents in your camera? You've got $9.75 left over for your creativity. This is a huge thing. That's why you got to know your equipment so well, as Bob Holmes says, that your camera doesn't get in the way of your photograph. And I think a lot of people do that. The camera gets in the way of the photograph.
Mark, can you say that again? I wasn't paying attention. Just kidding.
That was good.
Mark, I swear I could listen to you talk all day. You're such an interesting and engaging guy, and this must have been such a fascinating journey writing this book.
I'm still having the journey. You know what it is, Scott? Now that I've released it, I'm getting the feedback. And what I find I'm seeing where it resonates with people, like when I give a talk. And one of the places that I saw that it resonated, and I'll just throw this out, is I said, what we need to do is create a creative movement. Planet Earth could use that spark of inspiration. And what if we put ourselves together and actually began a whole new creative movement? Of course, you're doing that. Many of us are doing that, but what if we had an overall umbrella for creativity? I'll just throw that idea out and see what happens.
I love that idea. Well, you know what else too? Creativity, photography, it brings people together. Music, it brings people together all over the world. We have so many things that we have in common. We actually have, around the world, with everybody, we have way more in common than we do not in common, right?
Absolutely.
And things like creativity and art and all, these are the things that bring people together. These are important things. Yeah. And that's why I think being a more creative person, living a more creative life, and the thing that's going to stick with me forever today, Mark, is the $10 analogy.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
You spend $9.50. I'm going to have to steal that one. I'm going to have to put it on a shirt. $9.50. Who was it said that, Mark? Somebody said that to you, or
his name is Keith Code, and I have.
Oh, the motorcycle guy.
Yeah, he wrote a book called The Twist of the Wrist, which is the Bible of the motorcycle world, and he let me put that section of the book in my book. So you'll read that whole little quote in my book.
Wow, that is so great.
Yeah, and it's such a great analogy, because that's exactly with photography. When you release yourself of being so focused on the technical and you can invest more time in the creative, that's really where your photography goes up. Yeah, it's really where you see your work really starting to shine.
All right, I'm going to go do something. So Mark sent me the PDF of the book, but I'm going to go buy it right now.
Whoa, you're the man.
I want to get the print version. I still love print. I'm still a fan of print, and I want to find here it is right here. And I'm going to get the paperback.
I'll sign it.
Oh, I would love that. Buy now. Done.
Boom.
All right, it's on its way. It's arriving September 9th with free Prime delivery. Woo! Place your order. All right. All right. Well,
I'm telling you, this book will change anyone's life, because listen, here's the other thing about creativity. It's not about just what we do with our cameras or if we write. It's about your whole life, as you said. Being a creative parent. Chris Burkhardt, I think we all know who he is,
sure,
right?
Of course.
The phenomenon on Instagram, I interviewed him, and he talked about how to foster creativity with your children. What a cool subject, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And gave the tips on how to do that. So having a creative life means all across the boards. As a matter of fact, the original title of this book was The Art of Living, because I wanted to emphasize that creativity can go into your life itself. So if you're going to be a better photographer, it would make sense to expand that creative process in all parts of your life. Like you, Scott, playing music and all the creativity that you have enabled and empowered us to do. I can't thank you enough. Every time I turn around, I'm using something I read from one of your books.
You're
No,
very kind.
I'm being totally honest. It's true.
Well,
and
you know what?
That's a wonderful thing.
So here's what people need to do. Yes, you should buy Marc's book, but really what you need is some new camera gear.
That's you get that new Canon lens. I'm telling you, your photography is
I
going to be
just bought
great.
a lens. Now I feel bad. I feel like I invested poorly.
How about this for some new camera
it's a tool.
gear?
It's a tool.
Here's
you
my
need the
Leica
tools.
from art school. It was my Leica M2, and this camera accompanied me everywhere. Isn't it just a beautiful thing? It's a work of art.
It is beautiful. It is a work of art. There is something special about Leica cameras. You can always tell a really successful author because they have a Leica camera. And as Eric will tell you, I do not have a Leica. I know that they're awesome. I've never met someone that has a Leica that isn't crazy about it. But hey, Marc, we have to do some giveaways. But thank you so much for taking the time to drop in and
Thank you, guys.
and tell us about your book. Yeah, that is awesome. I can't wait to get you to sign my printed copy. And you are an awesome guy. We love having you on here. And as you know, anytime you're in Florida, we will clear the decks to get you back on the show.
I'll be there.
You are
I'm
a
gonna be there.
delight. You are an awesome person. You are so, I'm so inspired of just doing an interview, and I feel like I want to go shoot. I want to go spend my $10 wisely. So thank you very much, Marc. Thank you so
Scott,
much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for
Take
And
care.
thank you guys
Best
for
wishes.
joining me around the world.
Yeah, we got everybody's watching from all
all
over
over
today.
the world.
So go to your local bookstore, wherever it is, and pick up a copy of this awesome book. Thanks again, Marc.
Thank you.